Howdy, folks, and welcome to THS That Horror Show episode 4. With recently hearing that this October of 2017, the prequel to the original TCM Texas Chainsaw Massacre was coming out, I thought, what better episode to do than about Leatherface himself, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I thought that when they did the other sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was kind of hyped up, but once I saw it, I was very, very disappointed about it. And I wish I wasn't because I really like the TCM movies. Even Next Generation, I thought that was great. But to come out with a prequel to a movie that didn't really need one at all is I'm very intrigued on it. Of course, I'm obviously gonna see it. I don't know about theater or if it even will go into theater, but pretty much all the other ones have, except for I think Leatherface and Next Generation. But all the other ones have made it to theater. And once again, back to part two. I don't have the DVD cover I want. I used to have it on VHS, but this is the only part two you really needed with Dennis Hopper and Chop Top and all that. That other sequel was a big, huge mistake in my book. But back to the point at hand. Like I said, on these That Horror shows, I like to tell a little bit of story. And the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre I seen was actually part two, just by stroke of luck. I saw the little VHS cover where it's, the cover. I just sat there like, this looks awfully familiar. And turns out, yeah, it's from the Breakfast Club cover, which is hilarious. Stroke of brilliance. But yeah, for years I could not find or get the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre until I was 15 or 16, and that's a little late. I just watched part two all the time going, is this how the first original TCM is going to be? Because I heard it was crazy and gory and very bizarre. Well, my first job, the first thing I did was go to a little place called Media Play. And I had the money, and I think there was only like one or two copies there, and that's when I finally got to pick it up. I was like, it was too sweet, and it was everything I hoped for and more. It's one of those 70s films that just, a lot of 70s horror films at least, they look like a documentary film. It looks like just a bunch of people go out and they follow these teenagers around and stick with them, and it's just like you're watching it like, this is so crazy, what am I watching here? And it just blew my fragile little mind. Well, by 15 my brain wasn't fragile at all. But yeah, it was really awesome, and I was so glad I got to watch it. And I felt so bad because I was so far behind on getting to watch it. It took me so long to actually see it. And speaking of, I like how in part two they include Franklin still in the wheelchair, and how he was in the first one. If you all have ever seen the original first one, you feel bad for Franklin in the wheelchair, but on the other hand, you kind of hope he dies and then he lasts longer than all the other ones, all the other friends and stuff. And it's not right to laugh at, but I did when he has to go take a piss, and then the semi truck goes by and he kind of rolls on down the hill and falls. And I'm surprised he didn't piss all over himself. I'm always looking at the crotch region. But anyways, then you always heard. I always heard of how gory it was, and even watching documentaries, watching it, because people watch it like this and their imagination runs. Like, I don't remember seeing all that blood or anything. Even when he kills Franklin, you don't really see too much, or when he's got the one guy lying on the table in the It's at the cook room, the kitchen area. They just show Leatherface and the chainsaw going down, but you don't see anything. And that's what I was getting to with what I was reading on the internet about. Every time a new TCM movie comes out, they always bring up about how gory it is, and that's something that it didn't seem that it needed in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was just so bizarre that it didn't need, you didn't need to see the skin and all the blood coming up. Sometimes in movies it's what you don't see that gets the mind going, and when you see everything, it kind of takes our imagination away. So when I hear something like, oh, this new Texas Chainsaw is going to be so gory, and it's like, well, I don't really care. I want something like the original. If you're going to do a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre prequel or sequel to a remake of a sequel, or two prequels, whatever in the hell you want to do, you got to do it right. Like, I got both of these here, the remake of the first one. It was alright. I seen it in theater. It wasn't too shabby. There was a couple scenes where when he gets his arm chopped off with like one hit, I was like, I guess so. It wasn't too shabby. And then I do like the cover of this. It's one of those box things. I thought that was pretty sweet. This one isn't too bad for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, another prequel. But it's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You really don't get to see the chainsaw until more than halfway through the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it was alright. The guy just happened to fall on this giant chainsaw, and then Leatherface pushed him on it. Really, it's about to me, the newer Texas Chainsaws was more about the guy from Full Metal Jacket. They just kind of threw Leatherface in there to give it more of a story. It really wasn't about Leatherface, and I know that in the newer part 2 to the original TCM, they made a little bit more about Leatherface and his sister. I didn't say spoiler alert after that, but who gives a fuck? No, it was a horrible movie, so if you're watching this, you probably already seen them all. That's why I don't really talk about too much of the movies. It's not really a review thing. It's just me talking about stuff and things. But yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, to me, is one of the greatest and best slasher / horror movies of all time. They didn't really have to show anything, and like I've said many times already, this is episode 4. I'm very big on sounds, and one of the sounds that are the scariest to me are chainsaws. So when you got the sound turned up, you hear that chainsaw going in them long runs in the woods over in Texas and all that. It's just, it gets my anxiety going through the roof. And so basically the whole point of me making this video, kind of like Stephen King's It video, where I said it's not a remake or reboot, it's original because it's in the theater. Do we really need a prequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I guess some would say yes, but I'm going to say no. But I'm going to watch it, and if it turns out like that piece of shit remake to a sequel, I once again am going to be very disappointed, and it's very hard to disappoint me. I pretty much like everything I see in here, the stuff I enjoy, of course. And, well, with all the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, when you put them all together, Leatherface was decent. It could have been better. Next Generation, that was really, really funny, and didn't expect it the way it was going to. I have it on VHS, but no cover, nothing, didn't bother pulling it out. And the remake was alright to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then the prequel, that was good. It could have been a little bit more about Leatherface and the chainsaw. The remake to the sequel was, or part 2 to the original, was not good at all. But when I was already made. This is actually a remake of my video. I deleted most of it because I was reading it online, and I read that like I said, that in October, the prequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre was coming out, and I went, what in the bloody hell are they thinking? I would just do something else with it. Another prequel. I mean, I guess really, what else can you do? Got to get Leatherface out there somehow, some way, I guess. But I really, really, if you haven't seen this and you're watching this, it's not as gory as most people would think it is, or if you're told what it is. It's just very, very bizarre and worth the watch for many, many years. Especially perfect time around springtime, summertime. Perfect time to watch something like TCM. Well, those are my quick story and thoughts on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And as a side note, I know it's not Christmas yet, but I wanted to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, so much that one time I sat on Santa Claus's lap and it said, she's like, "What do you want for Christmas, little boy?" And I said, "Texas Chainsaw Massacre." She said, "Isn't that a little too gory for you?" And I look over, my mom's bloodshot red, and I go, "No, I like scary things." She's like, "Well, is there something else Santa can get you?" And I said, "Wrestlers?" And once again, that's, dude in tights, tight tights. So it didn't help on either way. But yeah, I had to get this out about pretty much the prequel of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I will see it, but not in theater, if it even makes it in the theater. I don't see why it's being made. Uh, and as a recommendation, go out and watch just the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's all you need. The sounds are great. The look is fantastic because it looks so real. So, I'm not going to say too much more, and I hope you all enjoyed THS, That Horror Show, episode 4 about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And until next time, folks.